Good evening, anyone that's listening right now. We'll just be standing by for a few minutes and wait until it's on 30, and we'll get going after that. Thank you.
Bram?
JC, yeah, we're live now.
Oh, you're live now?
Yes, we're live. Just waiting for in 3 minutes we'll start then I see people are joining, so I see some...
okay, the thing is called for at
30.
At 30?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, it has not started yet, okay.
Yeah.
That's why it's so quiet, okay.
Yes. So we're just testing. We've got close to 30 people are in right now, so that's good.
Okay.
Sound is good. JC, I'm just checking so we hear JC correctly. Bram, do you want to just say a few words?
Say a few words at the beginning?
Bram, if Bram wants to say a few things, see if we can hear him.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, okay. So Lauren, we can hear them good. I think we're the sound is good for everyone. Okay. So we're just about to start. So I will say hi again to everyone that's there, that's online. We did this last week. It was quite successful, and we did have a few questions that came in. We've got for this one ahead of time, but as you all know, that we're doing this live, so we do see the chats and the questions that pop up next to the video. So I will try and pick some of the questions as I see them go by. We've also got Lauren Nagel that's helping us with this. So please, if I don't see your question or I don't answer the question, it's probably because it's just going by a little too quickly, and I'll try and get back to it, or Lauren will send them back our way. This evening, we've also got, well, depending on your time zone, maybe afternoon, but this evening, we've got Bram Tilroe, who's with me. Bram is the Western Vice Chair of COPA. And a little background info on Bram, he still flies quite a bit. IFR, ex-NAV Canada terminal controller, and I think Bram will have a few minutes just to introduce himself. But he's on the line for questions anyone may have, and I'd like him to speak a little bit about ADSB later on. And we've also got Jean-Claude Audet, or JC, as many of you know, and JC's also on the line. And JC's got a bunch of ratings and instructor and quite a bit of experience flying on different types of aircraft. And he's the one with the operational knowledge and the one that answers a lot of your questions in COPA. Just so people can know who you are, Bram, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bram Tilroe, and we're out in the west where it's still full of snow, and welcome to the online, and welcome to all the COPA members that have tuned in on this, and hopefully you will get some useful information out there for everybody to listen to. Over.
And JC?
Good evening, good afternoon, good day. I'm JC Audet, operations with COPA. We've been doing that for, 3 years come June now. Thoroughly enjoy it, and welcome you guys, ladies, on this session tonight. And certainly hope can provide you good, useful, valid information to help you enjoy aviation, especially these demanding times. Over.
Good. So you recognize both voices. There's Bram and there's JC. So I will leave. We've got a few questions that were sent to us ahead of time. Um, so we'll go through those, and also just send your questions our way and just type them in. I see some of the names and some people are in there. Thank you for raising your hand and saying you're there. It's always nice to know that we've got a little bit of a crowd. So I will start with a question, because we're here for you, and this is really because we're not going out there. We're not meeting with most members, and a lot of the flights are not meeting. Directors are not seeing the members really, and we're all confined. We should be all confined, so that's what we're doing. That's why we're doing this. So again, this is another opportunity for you to chat with COPA, and we've got the people on the line that could help you with your questions. A lot has been going on with the COVID-19 things and around the country. Transport's still there, putting some stuff out there, so we may be able to answer your questions. If we can't, we'll go back to transport and get those answers. So let's get going with number one. And I won't be looking at the camera, I'm looking at the questions, but I'll get back to this. So my question pertains to Canadian aircraft stuck in the US and travel restrictions prevent returning to the US to pick up the aircraft and return home. How would aircraft owners handle a situation where the annual runs out during this period? Will TC allow an extension to the annual until travel restrictions are removed? I would not want to be limited to a ferry permit, as they typically require VFR conditions, which is very limiting when trying to get to and back from in a day. And this is from Edith Craddock in Paris, Ontario. Thank you for the question. As we stand now, travel restrictions, yes, there are travel restrictions. Any foreigner no foreigner can enter the country in Canada. Canadian citizens would be allowed to. If you were with your aircraft in the States, you'd be allowed to come into the country as long as you follow all the rules, the confinement and the isolation for 14 days, and that you follow all these rules. You are allowed to do that if you're a Canadian citizen coming in with your Canadian aircraft. If your aircraft is in the United States presently, but you're still in Canada, well, you're sort of stuck. And I don't think you could travel to the States as a Canadian citizen and get there and get your aircraft back. So while the borders are shut down for that sense or that purpose, I don't think you couldn't get your aircraft back. So, but if it does go out of annual, now that's another issue. JC, do you want to take that and just follow up on that? If the annual runs out during that period, and what would happen with this aircraft?
Yes, it is very likely that if an airplane is stuck in the U.S. at this time, and the annual is coming up shortly, it will run out of annual. Now, excuse me, historically, transport has never issued flight permits for the purpose of maintenance, especially an annual, to my knowledge anyway. The one thing on that is, at this time, they say they will not issue an extension on the annual either. Now, there are two possible ways of doing it. One is, there are three possible ways actually. One, there are some AMEs in the States who are authorized by Transport Canada to perform maintenance on aircraft. So I don't have the list of those. You can get it either by contacting Transport, or if you're down there or plan on going, you can Google various aircraft maintenance organizations and find one who can do and sign your annual. That's one possibility. Second possibility, and we hope that Transport will relent and agree to that once things settle down, and we're going to keep working on Transport in that respect, is that given the very special circumstances that we're living through now, there's a possibility that they might agree to give a ferry permit for the purpose of bringing the airplane back to Canada to do its annual and go on from there. Now, the third option is that, again, once the borders are open and it's possible to travel, that the owner might be able to convince his or her AME to fly to wherever the airplane is, carry out the inspection, sign off the books, and come back. So that will not be a cheap annual, obviously, because the owner would have to pay for that. But anyway, those are the three options. And I noticed one thing on the question there. It says that the ferry permit is typically VFR. Not so. I've had ferry permits issued to me where it would fly IFR. It depends on the reasons why you have the ferry permit, just to clarify that. But anyway, there are three possibilities. Ferry permit is a possibility. We're going to keep working with transport. Between now and then, we will collect more information as to how many aircraft are stocked out of the country, out of annual, build a file to go to transport with this.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you, JC. So we can bring this up, but I think it was clear enough in that. I hope this answers the question. Question 2 from Dave Grandfors in Gravenhurst. It was quite a long question, but we'll summarize it. The downloading of federal airports in the mid-90s to municipalities has been a total disaster. Our airport is now run with no pilots, no tenants on the board, and money is thrown around with no benefit or attraction to general aviation. The mentality of the municipalities is to treat it as an income-producing operation rather than as a part of the community infrastructure. What is COPA doing about this? I'll start, then I know I have Bram that could say something because Bram was around when that happened, and so was JC. I was still in diapers. No, I'm joking. But this happened in mid 1990s, 1994, around those years, 94, 95, 96. So what's COPA doing about this? I know there's often the comparison with the United States. It's completely different political systems. We could not compare to them over there. Here, the economics are different, where the money goes, how it's allocated. In the States, it's earmarked for different little things, where here we have a big slush fund and we use it for different, for anything really. We have like social net that's different than in the United States. So it's different. We couldn't compare to AOPA and what the FAA is doing with airports. There's nothing, and we can't bring that system in here. It's two political systems, two different systems. To get back to that question, what is COPA doing? We know that there's a national airport system out there. It's got about, I think it's 26 airports, the big ones that have been kept under Transport Canada's guidance and purview, and they keep those. A few regional ones out there, and I'll say the thousands of others have been given away or just given to municipalities or other entities. These are precious jewels and assets that the municipalities have. What COPA is doing is, I think the biggest thing we've done is in 2017 when we did the economic impact of general aviation in the country, and the amounts that were put out there and what an airport generates. And COPA has been doing this over the years. Even my predecessor and the board in years prior to that, to the 2017 economic study, it was how much is it worth? How much money is brought into an airport if there's an overnight stay, if you fly there, and what you do. What COPA can do and what members can do and what people can do is actually just show what the impact is. How much is it worth for a municipality to have an airport there? You will have, and I've written about this many times, I know, in my President's Corner, and we've seen this in the magazine, how can we pick the right airport manager, have people that are not just there for the dollar sign, but actually there for the longer term, the quick turnaround, invest $1, get $1 back. It won't be that way. It's a long-term thing, and you've got to attract the right people to be at the airport. And it's information, making people aware of the worth of an airport or aerodrome in a municipality. And once they are aware of that, they can usually develop quite nicely, and they will bring in money, but it's just the selling job. And that's what we're helping, and we're helping people to help themselves with the economic impact study and other tools that we've put out there over the years. And that's really, it's up to the members, it's up to the Copa Flights, it's up to us also to provide the right tools. And we've seen success stories across the country on certain airports and aerodromes of people who truly believe that they've got this jewel in their municipality. So really what we're doing is just helping the people help themselves in showing the elected officials that they've got something precious there. Because once you remove an airport, you know you're never going to get it back. Developing and putting a new airport is also very tough, as we all know, because of the new responsible aerodrome development, which is fine, but it's really tough to get these new airports in there. So if you've got one, try and keep it alive. To get back, and I just want to hear quickly, or for 5 minutes, let's say, Bram, what do you recall from those times when I think you were with transport at the time, of those municipalities getting hold of these airports in the airport system? Anything that you can give us as information?
Well, only the major or even smaller airports, especially more familiar out west here, is where Transport Canada owned, and they have been divested to airport authorities. Airports, as an example, were provincially developed, provincially run, provincially planned, and it's the provincial government that is responsible. Now, they've done the same thing and divested themselves of it, a number of years ago when we had changed the governments, and said, okay, you municipalities look after it. We've since had a lot of issues with where airports couldn't see the worth or the value in their airport. I'm also the chairman of the Alberta Aviation Council. We've gone around to a lot of these councils, and we've been very successful in lobbying to them the value of their airport from our own perspective, and also what Copa National has done with the economic impact study. We actually went so far as this year, and unfortunately being held up by the COVID thing, is that we have the Minister of Transport and one of the MPs really lobbying for us, and we actually have a bill that was passed first reading and second reading in the Alberta Legislature to form a strategic advisory committee made up of all the aviation interests in Alberta to direct the Minister of Transport and try and save all these airports and make it more understandable to the communities what their responsibilities are. Yes, it's definitely the problem with finances. Some airports forget the airport out of town, and it's maybe not worth looking at or spending grant money or anything on it, but it's an ongoing process, and our most successful efforts have been over the last 10 years in airports where we've got the local COPA members especially and the council members involved into either getting on council, lobbying, going in front of municipalities to sell the airport and help out with a lot of volunteering and so on. So, I mean, that's the example I use here. Anywhere else in the country, like up in the Arctic, well, the airports are still owned by the territories or transport, they're subsidized that way. But a lot of smaller airports, you've got to look at who was the original owner of that airport. Was it local, provincial, municipal owned, or federally owned? And I think there's a lot fewer airports that were divested federally than they are locally, because transport didn't own all the airports, so they owned the system and the infrastructure. But that's sort of kind of putting in perspective, and all I can recommend to members, get your folks out there, get in the face of these local politicians and so on, and help Copa out, because Copa can't solve it everything. It's a big country, but on the local or provincial level, you might have a little more successful getting other entities involved to help, save the airport or promote the airport and have them direct funding to keep it viable. Over.
Good. Thank you, Bram. JC, do you have anything to add to that, or that was complete?
Yes, I would add that support what Bram just said. In the last 2 years and a bit, I've worked with 3 different airports where, the first one, the gentleman called me and said, look, he said, the municipality wants to raise our taxes, our fees, and do away with the pumps. What are we going to do with this airport? So after talking a bit and so on, I took the approach with them to help them and guide them. It was not far from Ottawa, so I could visit them. And they got organized where about 8 months later, the city was asking them, is there anything we could do for the airport? Is there anything you need? We have a bit of money we could put there. So basically, these owners, pilots, users of the airport got organized, talked with the local officials, and they also volunteered to work on various committees with city, not leave the township owning the airport, complaining it's an expensive endeavor, and not doing anything to help them. The same thing has happened with the other three. So the other two, things have turned around dramatically for those three airports. And right now I'm working with two gradually towards the same idea. So no, we're only 2 or 3 people in COPA office. We cannot do all that for everybody, but we can certainly help people who want to help themselves. How to do it, what's the best way to do it, with guidance and advice, documentation, whatever you may need that we have at our disposal. Over.
Okay, thanks, JC, and thanks, Bram. So there's quite a bit of history, and the thing is, we can help members help themselves on this, and there's a lot that can be done, especially raising awareness. And it's different across the country. Depending on the provinces, we do feel a little some animosity, more animosity towards airports and flying in certain provinces. Others are just bleeding aviation. Third question from Mike Gourd in Nova Scotia. Too many pilots have been grounded for medical reasons that do not present a risk factor that is meaningful for the general interest of aviation safety. I'd like to see COPA in partnership with AOPA work towards a Canada-US treaty that allows cross-border flying of any aircraft or pilot medical category that is valid in the home country of that pilot. What is COPA planning to do to work towards these ends? When we talk about, I'll just answer how this works. I'd like to see COPA in partnership with AOPA work towards a treaty. What we both start, I'd say both associations start by raising awareness with their regulatory bodies, transport and FAA on the other side. And if there's a need, there's a want, then we present this to the appropriate people. And I think it's twice a year. Transport and FAA usually meet, and they just put stuff on the table saying, we've got this, we've got that. How about we do something, and can we formalize some form of treaty? So we did bring this up a few years ago, and we said, how about, because we know that a lot of basic med pilots want to fly into Canada. It was a no, hard no at some point. So we sort of presented something, and I did talk about that last week, I think. We brought something to the table to transport saying, could you look at giving the basic med folks our medical category 4 medical privileges when they're here, and we can have something similar when we fly over there. To have a blanket, anything works and everything is fine, I don't think we'll ever get there. I personally, as COPA, we don't want to be, we are a different country. We're a sovereign country. We're not going to be the same and use American rules. We have our own cars, and different countries, all countries are bound by ICAO. And if you're going to do some international flying, it's got to be on a valid medical license recognized by ICAO. Otherwise, it is a treaty between both countries, and it would be a recognition of each other's licenses and medical certificates of permits. So it opens the door to a lot of stuff. And right now, what we're trying to do is just take the steps to allow basic med and maybe our medical category 4 to be allowed in the States on certified aircraft. And we are taking the appropriate steps. And I know JC is talking to the medical official here in Canada. JC, do you want to take it for a few minutes? Just go on with this.
Well, I cannot add much more than what you just said, Bernard, except for the fact that some people in transport in medicine aviation group are open to not necessarily having basic med here, but widening the Cat 4 privileges in the direction of basic med, but also there is action, there is talk between the two countries. So what Mike is proposing would eventually be recognized. No idea. This is government politics. We have no idea when that will happen. But definitely there is serious discussions both sides of the border towards that.
Yes.
Over.
Okay. At the same time, we're going through these pre-received questions. If there are any other ones, just write them as you see right next to on the screen there, and we'll see them come up. Fourth question from Joao Durado. Pronounce Joao, one syllable? Okay. Mr. Durado, London, Ontario. I wrote my private pilot written test in July 2018 and had a pass mark of 77%. My practical pilot test was scheduled for April 4th, 2020. However, due to the COVID-19 issue, I was not able to perform my test as the written test is valid for 24 months. What will happen if I'm not able to take my practical test before July 2020 due to the COVID-19 issue? Do I have to take my written test again, or will transport extend the validity of my written test? While I looked this up, I think, JC, is there not the COVID? There was an exemption. I think it goes up to September. You're good until September for the written test. The new exemption that was there for that just came out. It is exemption for the written tests or the flight tests. Sorry. It says if you you will have the last day that an extension. It's either for the aviation document booklet or there's also the flight test, and there's a date, and you would be good until September. So this is there is an extension for the flight test. So we will get back to you. I think I'll take a note and make a note and make sure that we get back to you with the exact date and what it says for the exemption. Because people that have been in either they've started their test, their flight test, or they either failed or whatever, but they have time to come back and before or after the COVID thing is done. So there has been an exemption signed. And we will get back to you, Mr. Durado. I have a question number 5 from Ayman Kamal in Markham. I have a question regarding importing a home-built aircraft from the USA, whether it is complete and has an N registration or still in the building stage. So my question is, what kind of paperwork is needed to be able to have it registered with transport, and how will I be able to bring it to Canada? Can I fly it? Or has to come on a trailer somehow and clear customs at the border? If flying it, do I have to prepare any paperwork with TC or customs before flying it to Canada? I will leave this one to JC, actually. Who's the guy with the home builds and amateur builds.
Yes, Ayman, I hope that you're on this conference call tonight, so I'll talk to you directly. But good for anybody else. There are essentially 3 ways of bringing in an American home built into Canada. Obviously, one thing you can do is buy a kit from a supplier and bring it in and build the whole thing in Canada. That's the basic way. Now, but you can also buy a completed home built and import it into Canada. If you choose that avenue, you absolutely must make sure that the C of R of the airplane and the flight permit, because they work on a flight permit over there, are without restrictions. What I'm referring to here is when a home built first gets the flight permit, there's a restriction on the number of hours. It could be 25 or 50 hours where the airplane cannot go further than so many miles from the base of operation. And if after those hours are flown without problems, then the flight permit the restriction is lifted and the airplane has a full flight permit for the home build. If you bring the airplane in Canada, if you buy the airplane, bring it into Canada, and that restriction has not been lifted, you will have a lot of trouble getting your special COA for home build in Canada. Transport will ask all kinds of things, which are all legitimate because it's not a certified airplane. So it will be very difficult. If you buy the airplane like that, make sure that restriction is lifted and it's a full, unrestricted flight permit that it has. The other thing that you could do is buy a project. Somebody started building the airplane, got tired of it, and is selling it. And it doesn't matter the degree of completion of the airplane. If the airplane has not flown yet and does not have legal papers to fly, my advice is do not touch it, because you're going to lose a lot of time and money. The reason, if the airplane has its flight permit but unrestricted, Transport Canada accepts that the FAA has done all the required inspection, all the work has been properly done, and the airplane is good. If the flight permit has not been issued, then Transport has absolutely no way of controlling what was done, what was inspected by the FAA, what was signed off, what the conditions are, and so on. So basically, if you bring in a partially built kit, then you essentially have to start back to square one with respect to inspections and so on. Now, what I'd say, I'll stop here. If you have any more questions or you'd like more clarifications, Amen, just send me a personal email or call. You'll get my email or phone number on the COPA website. Just get in touch with me and I'll spend some time with you to clarify these. Okay?
Thank you, JC. I'll just go back as you were answering this. I went back and saw the exemption that was provided for the previous question for the private pilot test. It is there was an exemption out on April 8th, and it is the one about the exams, and you will have until September 1st to do your exam. So it is really, it's actually something. All flight test candidates with outstanding or uncompleted partial flight tests allow candidates to complete the partial flight test beyond the 30-day limitation. So this is done, and it's done. It's actually signed, and it is one of those COVID-19 exemptions. It is NCR November Charlie Romeo 045 2020. That's the exemption. So you can do that until September 1st. Moving on to the next question. I haven't heard, it is from Tim Wang in Nanaimo, BC. I haven't heard anything lately about the prop overhaul 10-year rule being reviewed to follow the practice done in the United States. What's the latest update? I'll get to that. Last year I was subjected, okay, so let me answer this number one first. So we've written about this quite a few times, either in eFlight or on, some's on the website. I've written this about in my President's Corner also, but the work, it's ongoing. It has definitely not stopped. There's some data that needs to be amassed on our side. There's definitely, and we know the story. We know, I've brought this to Transport, that planes are not falling out of the sky in the United States, but it's a little different here, and there's got to be some supporting data showing a few things here, because we don't have the same rules and the same regs. So it's still in the works. We're not stopping, and we will let you know of the results and the outcome. We should have something coming up this year. Either we will look for more data, and we'd like to have some of your data out there that you've done when you've done your prop overhaul, or some other requests that we will put out to you, but it has not stopped. Number 2 in the question is, last year I was subjected to a racial slur made by another pilot via the mandatory frequency of my home airport. Eventually, I managed to find out the offending aircraft's registered owner and submitted the information to TC to open an investigation. The flight service station records luckily were saved and provided the evidence supporting my claim. As of January 2020, Transport Canada has not yet resolved the issue and indicated the radio communication regs which matches this incident was repealed in 2011. The president of the flying club, where the offending pilot and I both belong to, didn't want to get involved since the incident didn't happen on club premises. What is the position of COPA on matters like this? And if Transport Canada has no remedy, what can I do? As a sidebar, the offending pilot was voted in as a new president. Okay, so it may be a little personal here, but for that individual and that member. But what I would say is, to take the appropriate actions in what you feel would be appropriate. If it's either a cease and desist, something to the effect that this is not tolerated. And as a national association, and as we grow, we see a lot more diverse membership within COPA. And this is totally unacceptable behavior. And we do want to include a lot more people and more diverse. So racial slurs of any type, based on sex, religion, origin, whatever, are not tolerated within COPA. So I would say do as you feel you should be doing, but this is out of COPA's hands. But we will not accept this, and we don't support any type of discrimination on that part towards our members or towards anyone else, for that matter. So it's a tough one, but it's really get this straightened out, and it's unacceptable behavior from a national standpoint, and from anyone, even just as a citizen here. We should never accept that. So please go ahead and do what you feel you should be doing. Question 7. In regards to exemption NCR 041/2020, does this mean my IFR will still be valid too? The 41/2020 is about the Canadian Aviation document booklets to continue exercising the privileges stated for a period of 90 days beyond the original expiry date. So this is the document, the aviation booklet that extends beyond 90 days, but not the IFR, at least the way we've understood this and we get this. I'll let JC explain a little more, but the IFR itself is not, will not be extended. JC, do you want to pursue on this one about an IFR being lapsed?
Yes. Well, as Eric certainly knows, the IFR, once the initial ride is done, is valid for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, I'm skipping currency and the rest of it there. At the end of 2 years, you need an IPC, Instrument Proficiency Check. And at this point, Transport has not included that one in the exemption of 2020, 041/2020. But anyway, read the details are on the special newsletter that we publish with respect to that. But answer to your question, no at this time.
So the IFR would not be valid, but we did publish something, and it was in the special newsletter, yes, that we sent out about the COVID and our response. So go back to that; it's on the website, and the news that will be there. Question 8 from Chris Law, Nova Scotia. Chris is a big fan, and he flies them all too. One of his aircraft. Is there any sort of break on insurance with Magnus, since I will not be flying my aircraft as much? So we've gone to Magnus, and yes, there's something that we have. It's exclusive to COPA, is the layup clause. But with the COVID situation right now, and usually the layup is if you're not going to fly your aircraft for 60 days or more, then you can lay it up, and you will get a credit for that period for the next insurance cycle. So you call them up and you say that you just talk about the layup clause, but you have to go through Magnus, so there is something. And some people have not been flying for about a month, Some will not be flying for maybe another few months. So just call Magnus, and yes, there's something that could be done. Thank you, Chris, for that question. I'll take one from the side. So on the sidebar here that I see from Sylvie Martel, there's a rumor that NAV Canada may be considering packages for ADSB out GA aircraft. Have you heard anything? What I can say, is that everything is possible at this point. There are a few, and I know from talking to Nav and exchanging with them and trying to push a little bit for the what's in it for us for GA, because ADSB is expensive, and we'll be talking about ADSB in a little while with Bram. ADSB is expensive, and make it worthwhile for us. That's what Nav is looking at, and everything is possible. I've heard of maybe a subsidy of some form, a package of some form, nothing. Everything is up there, and we don't know yet. But the rumor could be that I've heard rumors also, but they're all over the place. Definitely the message that we put out there, and that I know that Nav has heard, is make it worth our while. So if we're going to put something that's right now cost is down to maybe $2,500, $3,500 plus installation, and if the prices do go down, but still that's quite expensive. It is too expensive for us. But what's it worth exactly? Make it worth our while. That's the message is out there. So I don't know about the rumors and all that. I just know they're working on it, and I'm glad they are. The other question I see again from Sylvie: is there an interest from the COPA members to work with TCCA on the en route IFR rating? JC, you want to take that one? The en route IFR. Hello, JC. Maybe he's on mute. Or hello. Okay, we lost JC. He will be back. So en route IFR, yes, we are interested, but it's a lot of work to get there. It's quite a bit of work to get some data and to at least push that and make it something worthwhile. I know there's interest from TC. They're up to a certain level. We have to get our members interested also and to push for that. But yes, there is interest from COPA. And from COPA members, we put this out there a few times. I know JC has asked, we've polled our members to see what the interest was, and there's a little interest, but I guess it's we just have to build on that and continue explaining what this would be. The en route IFR for the members that, well, you may have seen this go by, but it's really taking off and going through clouds and sort of flying over the top, but you have to land VFR. So that's basically, simply put. There's another question from Lewis regarding the prop overhauls. Would it not make more sense to require 10-year overhaul for fixed pitch and 5-year for variable pitch if a requirement should be imposed at all? Right now it's the other way around. So it's 5 years and 10 years for variable. So the 5 years is there for the fixed pitch.
Just on the propeller overhaul there,
Yep.
Bernard, that's the way it used to be, and what we have now is better than what was there before, because now it's only every 10 years you've got to go for an inspection and overhaul. You used to have to do it every 5 years in between for a variable pitch prop. So right now, I don't think Louis' answer is really where we want to go. That's putting it backwards again.
Yeah.
As far as the American way is concerned, yes, we are finding I've had the 10-year overhaul done a number of times, and the prop shops are finding corrosion and stuff in hubs and stuff. So you have to firstly decide, is this really what you want to do, or is it a safety issue? Wouldn't you like to know if the propeller is in limits, the blades are in limits, the hub is not corroded, and all this sort of stuff. So I don't know, the Americans, and I was recently down in the States for a conference down there when talked to propeller people and the FAA, and they said, they're finding some of this, and but they're leaving it up to the individual pilot to make that decision. So we have to decide, do we want to err on the side of safety, stick with our system, or go the American way? I like to err on the side of safety. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Over.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, it's a whole discussion, really. But what we have right now is safer. Yes. Other question that was sent a little earlier. I was wondering if there was any mention from TC concerning written exams during this pandemic. It would be amazing if online proctored examinations could be temporarily permitted, but I understand this may be far-fetched. Clay Burnt and Edwin Lamb, far-fetched. We could ask. That's basically what we could do. I'm not sure if TC has the infrastructure for that, but I can just relay the question. We have twice a week, we have calls with TC and with industry, and we just put our questions forward out there, and we'll see what happens. I can ask that one, but I doubt it, but we'll see. Thanks for the question. I have another one. There's one. There's one that was sent in French. Does Transport Canada foresee light sport category coming to Canada? JC, are you back on?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we both know. I just want to talk about that. Is there a possibility of light sport in Canada? We do know, we've been talking to a few people at Transport, and there's a possibility LSA may come in. Will it be the exact same thing as LSA in the States? I don't know the details, but I know there was something being written or looked at in November, December, and I guess it may have been put on hold. But I don't have anything more to add that yes, there's going to be some form of a LSA coming in to Canada or being approved. Anything that you can add on that, JC, or what?
Yes, the Transport Canada is looking seriously into creating a new category called light sport aircraft, the LSA. What's motivating them is that there are a lot of planes built outside of Canada. They're brought into Canada. Some are purchased and brought into Canada, and since they cannot be registered as light sport aircraft because the category does not exist, they cannot be registered as home built because they're not home built. They cannot be registered as certified because they're not. The only option is that they're registered as advanced ultralight. Now, when the category for advanced ultralight was created, the Transport never had in mind, never foresaw what's going to happen now that with light sport aircraft. Those LSAs are very high-tech, modern design, well-equipped, very fast, high altitude, way, way beyond what the ULA was intended to be. So Transport has come up to realize that and wants to do something about it. A lot of people would like to have LSA in Canada. Now, just think back of a few words I said. The airplane needs a new category. It does not fit into any of those. And the fact that the airplane is built by the manufacturer, if it has its own category, now it's almost like a certified aircraft. It's not fully certified, but Transport is in a quandary as to how are they going to manage that. The maintenance, who will do maintenance on those airplanes and so on. And LSAs is a nice thing to have, but in the States, they have the same problem, except that there's a much larger number. They're bigger, so they're basically treated very, very close to a certified aircraft. And Transport does not really want to go that far, but they're trying to figure out how far to go with it. So, yes, they're open to it. They're working on it, but it's not a high priority. And COPA's in discussions with them, but still, even if we push, it's not high on the priority list. But sooner or later, we hope something will come in that direction.
Thank you, JC. I'm used to saying anything else, anyone, but no one is speaking. It's a one-way thing here. I'm glad we do have these little things on the side there. We don't have any more questions. I think we've addressed. Oh, okay. There's one from Ryan there. Any ideas on when flight training will be allowed to start up again? It is, and Pavel also. Flight training, no, we don't have any idea. I think it will be, it will be a federal decision because it's federal, but then it will be based on health departments. I'm not saying I've got the truth here, but it will be a Transport Canada decision. But right now, the way I'm seeing this, it is non-essential. It is around the country, and it's part of these limitations. The fact that they're non-essential. It will be when things start opening up again. So I don't have a clue. I don't think anyone does at this point, except when the curve is flattened and that we can start doing things again. That's the answer, I would say. And it will be based on health authorities' opinions that transport will, because right now I know transport is working with public safety, transport themselves within the department, and health, and probably a few others. But what they're saying is they're just analyzing this and making sure that people stay safe. So I don't have any idea. Pavel, I saw your question, and where can I get an update on this? We'll try and get you an answer on where you can get an update. Sylvie, yes, ATAC needs to push on getting the flight schools. Yes, flight schools are part of ATAC. They're members of ATAC, the Air Transport Association of Canada. So they're the ones that would be doing lobbying on that, and that's ATAC that would look to getting this done. Ken has a question. If anyone has had difficulty with voting, the online voting for OPA directors that opened today, I've heard from a number of members having difficulty to cast their vote. Thank you. I'm glad we're hearing this, and we'll see how. I think there's been a little issue or a little bug about this for today. I'm not sure if things, because it was a day off in Ottawa, it was a day off in different places. So we'll see tomorrow how this goes, but we're going to check on that. So please go back and try again if you had issues with that. I know Lauren is listening, and Lauren has been working on this, and I think she'll take this up and see where we make sure we fix this. No. Are there, and Jeremy, yes, are there any avenues to involve COPA in a much delayed medical reissue? Transport seems to be taking a long time to make a decision and reissue a medical. JC, you've worked with, what would you say on things like this? About a medical that's been delayed and us trying to get someone or helping someone with their medical?
Yeah, but what was the question? I don't have
it right,
and I did not understand.
Are there any avenues to involve COPA in a much delayed medical reissue? Transport seems to be taking a long time to make a decision and reissue a medical. What do you say to that? Yeah.
For some people, there may be what seems to be long times, and I agree with that. This is a problem that transport has in some regions, and we've been working on them to try to improve that. We can't do much with transport, but if somebody has undue delays, usually people contact me, and I've been able to talk to the right people and get something going.
So it could be something, usually people contact JC directly, and I'd say, Jeremy, if you're a COPA member, go ahead and contact JC directly. I am saying if you are a COPA member, because we do tend to members only. We're not part of the government. We're not part of anything. We are membership based. So we do when you call into the office or you're asking for questions, we only cater to members. So I just want to make this clear because I know there are non-members coming up, and Jeremy, I don't know exactly, but I'm just saying you should contact JC, and then we'll see how JC can help you on this one. Question by Martin Abud. If the question of changing 126.7 around Montreal, the frequency is highly congested. We have talked to NAV about this. It's Industry Canada, it's the gliders, it's NAV, it's transport, it's the flight schools. It is possible to do something, but it's a ballet of so many players, and it's a question that we bring up to NAV once in a while, and it's part of the review around Mirabel and Greater Montreal. It will be happening, so it is on the table, but it's not something that happens overnight. Eric Demers, my IFR will not be current. Is it possible for it to be postponed? We'll be having a French session tomorrow, Eric, and this question was answered about 10 minutes ago, so no. The answer is no. No more questions coming from there. I'd like to invite, yes, gliders use some other frequency, yes. But I'd like to ask Bram to talk to us a little bit about ADSB, and then we'll see if we do have more questions. Thank you, Jeremy, for being a member. Thanks. If we have more questions after that, we'll get to them. But Bram, who's been a controller, who's got ADSB on his aircraft, talk to us a little bit about the system here in Canada, where things are, where do you think they're going, and what should pilots expect of this system here in the country? So, Bram, if you want to, because I know you've helped COPA also with your aircraft to do some testing with NAV. You were equipped really early on, and what's your take on this?
Okay, thanks, Bernard. I'd just like to maybe give a little bit of history. I mean, the ADSB was actually originally developed in Alaska by the FAA as a capstone project for ADSB for all these float planes in the fog there to not run into each other because they had a serious problem. And that was in the 90s. Then it was taken over in the International ADSB project by the FAA to go further with this because it was a very successful thing. And one of the things that if you want to go back and read my article in the COPA Flight Magazine from January a year ago, 2019, I championed ADSB in and out for safety reasons, to see and be seen, and it has nothing to do with the ground-based, space-based, or anything, but you can see everybody around. It saved my bacon twice in the United States already, where people were equipped, were out of controlled airspace, were out of ATC earshot, and so on, where we actually made diversions in order to see a target that we couldn't visually see. And that, to me, is worth the price of admission to ADSB in and out aircraft to aircraft. But anyway, going back, the FAA decided about that time in the early 2000s to go ground-based with their ADSB. And put up similar to what you can describe as basically putting cell towers all over the country to have ADSB into their aircraft control system. And it was originally designed as a surveillance system for air traffic controllers to complement and supplement radar outside of radar coverage. What NAV Canada did at the same time, I was involved in 2008 when they first proposed forming a company called Arion, which they're still the major shareholder, and do the same thing for space-based. The thing is, space-based and ground-based, 1090 is a worldwide frequency, which NAV Canada really lobbied at the International Telecommunications Union in Geneva to have that frequency protected. FAA decided to also have a secondary frequency 978, which is not protected for lower level because it was easier to use in some stuff with their uplinking from their radar to the aircraft. So worldwide, other than the continental United States, 1090 is the frequency to go if anybody's deciding to equip. The other thing is we now have 66 satellites orbiting all over the world, and you can be seen everywhere, and that's why COPA has lobbied Transport, NAV Canada. They've already agreed. We've done the testing that it could supplement 406 and be an alternate means of compliance for the 406 ELT because it's way more accurate. You get twice a second update. Regardless of where the antenna is on the aircraft, there could be some shielding, but you're going to be seeing a lot quicker than waiting for an ELT to go off or using spider track or spot, which, you can set up personally at 5-10 minute intervals. So much more accuracy. Also, we've talked to NavCana, and they're actively working on it, where they're developing an algorithm where it could decide, this aircraft is on this flight plan here, and it is descending for some reason, not doing what it's supposed to be doing, and it's losing speed, and it set off an alarm with controllers because it can see anywhere in the country because you're below stall speed and apparently you're at ground level. And that would start then any kind of a SAR action there. So there's another safety feature that you might want to consider in the future that might be certainly worthwhile to be looking into. There are a number of issues with space-based ADS-B, and including in the United States. I fly a lot to the western United States, high mountains, high terrain. If you fly, for instance, going down last couple months ago, the Montana Aviation Conference, I'm only going to pick up one tower, and I have to be well inside the American airspace to even get an uplink for weather information from that tower. So it's not very universal. In fact, to that date, only the Billings Control Tower and Tursa have the mandate as being Class C. So if you're not in Class C or A and B, then, you can still get around all over without ADS-B, even in the United States, regardless of what system or installation you are using. But if you're out in the western mountains, unless you're up at 14,000 feet, you're not going to get continuous coverage. And they certainly realize that you can't put these towers all over the place to get that kind of coverage. So AOPA's warned people too, in most of those places you want to get at least 3,000 above ground level or higher to get any reliable information. One of the issues, of course, is with space-based, where your antenna location is on your aircraft. We have worked with NAV Canada on this antenna diversity issue, and we've done testing. In fact, we use my aircraft, and I have track logs available that anybody could share, that I've shared with people, done COPA briefings out here west to show what the issue is. When the aircraft antenna is located in a normal situation at the bottom of the aircraft, there's shielding taking place for the fuselage and stuff for it to look up. But it's not as bad as we thought. However, with twice a second updates, it's not very consistent. If you remember that radar takes 6 seconds, so it's way better than radar. So in order for a controller to provide separation, especially IFR separation with a non-diversity equipped aircraft, we have found out that you can be coasting the target where they would actually drop off, no flight plan, no target on the radar after 30 seconds. This happened very few times, but it's still not reliable enough to count on it. So we're trying to still experiment. Well, maybe we can replace the antenna in a different location on the aircraft on top of the windshield. I'm aware that the United States, about a big avionics shop that I've talked to and have been down there recently, have installed antennas, single antennas on the top of a float plane, especially an amphib float plane, where there would be a lot of shielding from all the stuff that's hanging below the aircraft, and they've had no complaints with it. So that's another avenue we'd like to see. Definitely, if diversity is the only way to go as far as ATC surveillance is concerned, then it's going to be double the cost because you basically got 2 transponders in the same box. There are some new technologies out there like UAVionics that you all might have heard of. They have the wing mounted antenna, but it's pointed down. Now they've come out with a tail mounted antenna. It's still not certified by transport for use other than ultralight aircraft, and people can, and COPA has a number of those transport. NavCan actually has one of those units. They're going to try it on their RJ aircraft to see what signal coverage they can get out of it. It has not been proven yet. It's not certified yet for that kind of use, and whether it would be good enough for IFR purposes. You got to remember, UAVionics is all standalone. So it doesn't integrate if you've already got a WAS certified system in your aircraft and so on, because it still goes through your mode key transponder. So if a cheaper way to do it, but you're looking down the road, eventually there will be no more mode key transponders around, and then you're stuck with this other unit which may not help you out. So, but technology is going to overtake things, as we all know. Things are happening very, very rapidly. We're trying to do more testing with NAV Canada. You got to remember that there's two ways to look at ADS-B. The aircraft to aircraft, you got ADS-B in, which is not mandated even in the States. It's only ADS-B out. But the benefit, of course, is in. And just disregard the weather stuff, which we're not going to be able to get in Canada because of bandwidth with satellites and so on. Although they are looking at it, whether there's a possibility in the future, we don't know. But they certainly are considering it. However, it's aircraft to aircraft. You fly in the busy thermal airspace, you people in the east around Toronto, Montreal, you can all see each other. And that's before you even get a warning from ATC that you've got to target a certain clock location. So that's the safety aspect of it that I'm personally selling. I've certainly seen the benefits of that. Yes, cost is a factor, or in my case, I've done it progressively over 5 years and changed transponders around. And right now, NAV Canada is using it in the Arctic airspace and the Canada Oceanic and Class A airspace. It has not been mandated as it was planned because Transport Canada put it on the back burner for a while in order to look at a lot of the technical aspect and the certification aspect of certain aircraft. But if a high-level airliner is equipped, they're using it for separation in the Arctic. They shrunk the separation standards over the North Atlantic, and they can certainly squeeze way more aircraft in the same airspace, and it's beneficial. The next phase would be Class B airspace, and then eventually Class C. But right now, there's no mandate. The mandate is off, but we're biding some time, and then we see where the technology and the systems may go. So it's quite a lot of information to absorb right now, but do not compare what the United States domestic is using. I know from my compatriots in Alaska, it's not working very well there either. They'd rather go to Aerion and use space-based as far as the AOPA group up there is concerned, because it's a huge state. It's almost a third of the size of the U.S., so it might work in the lower terrain areas in eastern Canada, eastern United States, where you get better line of sight. But we've got to consider we're a huge country. I know there's a lot of people in Ontario that say, well, why can't we put some of these towers up and get this kind of stuff going? Hey, that might benefit you, but we got to think universally and globally in this country where we're going. Also, the Europeans have done the same thing with 1090, so it's Mexico, the Bahamas, and so on. So I don't know what else, unless there's more questions. People are certainly free to converse with me or to COPA and get more detail on it. But I wouldn't rush into any kind of equipping unless you're doing a panel rebuild at this time. You might want to consider diversity. I'm certainly considering if that's the only way to go. But why don't we just wait to see what the benefits may be? ADS-B in, you can get to a Stratus antenna, to ForeFlight, to everything else, and it's fantastic. If you go on the FlightAware right now, you can see targets flying all over the Arctic because they're picking it up from that same Aerion system. And NAV Canada is the beneficiary of that because they're the majority shareholder. So hopefully, as mentioned earlier, Bernard mentioned somebody asking about whether there would be any subsidization from NAV Canada. They've looked at it. They can see the benefit. Maybe they can help us out with that because they own the company, and sooner or later there will be a payoff benefit, and there might be some balancing act taking place. But hopefully I leave it without talking too fast, being an ex-controller, but hopefully Bernard maybe can chime in there and see if I've covered everything. Over to you, Bernard.
I think you covered it pretty good. Just where we are right now, I see a few comments came up. I'll just answer those after, but thank you for what you put out there, Bram. Yes, we are totally different than the US. We're not even going down that road. We're not going to push anyone. Maybe just a southern tip of the country gets a little bit of 978, and that's it. The Americans know that they need to have 1090 when they come in here, so that's not a big thing. AOPA know we have to have diversity, and it's just such a big country, so we're not pushing for anything but the Canadian system that's out there. Sylvie brought a nice comment there that to use ADSB as a SAR tool in lieu of an ELT 406, it's actually, I've spoken to public safety and D&D, and we're not going to use this in lieu of the 406 right now. I mean, what we're saying and what we're pushing for is to complement. It would be the suspenders as well as the belt, and that's what we're looking for. And for this to prove itself, I know that NAV is working on this system. It's called CSER. Canadian Enhanced Search and Rescue, and it is some type of algorithm that will be helping the search and rescue people actually to try and get the search out of the search and rescue so that we know exactly where this thing, where the aircraft has fallen. TC would write the rules once this is proven, and then it would be a question of SAR, D&D, public safety, and everyone to be aware of that. Other comment I see there, and thank you, Bram, for ADSB is really. I mean, there's no going back really on these things.
Yeah, Bernard, if I could just chime in on one thing that people that the rest of the world and even the FAA is thinking longer term, and they would prefer. I know from having many conference calls with AOPA, FAA, Garmin, and so on, and the technical people in the U.S. and you've been on some of those conference calls that they probably wish they'd gone the other route. However, the airspace in the Caribbean is the responsibility, of FAA down there, and they are actively considering mandating ADSB, sky-based ADSB in that area to provide the coverage they need for the controllers. Because right now it's a non-radar environment, all those islands out in the Caribbean, and it's not very efficient, and they're actively considering it. So, if you look at the big picture approach on this whole space-based ADSB, you can see where it eventually would benefit the aircraft, to benefit air traffic control, and benefit safety.
Yep.
Over.
Okay. And it will. There's going to be huge benefits with this one. I see Pavel is saying, I think all pilots would like to have ability to see Mode C traffic and weather in their iPad while flying. Yes, it's out. The question is there. We've asked NAV to see what they can provide us with. To see this Mode C traffic, it would be quite similar to what's in the States, but we've got to find some other way than 978 towers on the ground. If there's there would be another way, but we'll see where that goes. Yes, Sylvie, situational awareness. It is amazing. I built my own little Stratix box, by the way. It cost me about $100 on Amazon, and I built the Stratix, so I get all the ADSB in. Now it's a question of having ADSB out for all the other aircraft, but seeing all these ins on my ForeFlight for $100, I built that with a PiWare thing. Really simple, easy to use, and you can make your own ADSB in for under $100. The other question, there was a comment about I think Jeremy that said something. Tailbeanix is fully independent. And thank you for the members that responded to our request a few months ago, because we were close, and we still are close to UAvionics. They were looking for candidates to do some testing for NAV Canada and to test the 1090. So we got them a list of people that were interested, and these people did receive a Tailbeacon X to be installed and be part of the test. It was not for certified aircraft. It was for home builds or amateur builds and the non-certified ones. So thank you for participating in this. I know things have been on hold for a little while because of COVID, but you will see some results coming out of that. And I know right now they're looking at the results and seeing how well the satellites are picking up the 1090 the Tailbeacon X, but not many people are flying, so there's not much data coming out of that. There was another question I just want to address. I think it. No, I think that was it. And then there was ownership, aircraft ownership. If there's a transport. Any TC delays in airplane ownership now due to COVID? I suppose the question that comes from Sergey. I suppose the question is probably a C of R. There's always been delays with transport about the C of R. It took 7 months to change my C of R early this year, so I don't want to point fingers at C, but there are a few delays depending on the regions, and they're working on that. So COVID is probably just going to introduce another slight delay, but just if you have any issues, just make sure you note the dates when you wrote something in, when you called, and if you do call us or JC or you call COPA and you come to us, we do a lot better job of helping our members if we have facts. If people come in and they say, I called, I tried, I did this, fix it, we can't help you on that. But if you do have facts or who you spoke to, which date, all the information, just bring that to us, and then we can more likely help you than just saying it doesn't work or that it's broken, fix it. We can't work with that. Bring us some facts and we'll work with you and we'll help you. Other than that, I see no more questions there. We're an hour 10 in, and it was supposed to be an hour, but I guess it's fine because you're still there. I see no more questions, and we will probably do another one of these because I see most people are interested. Lauren, I know you're not on the phone or anywhere, but if you do have anything, just let me know. And I'm looking at my different screens here. Other than that, tomorrow there's one in French. I will go through these questions. If any of you do have questions, other questions that you want to add, just send them in and I will answer them in French tomorrow, but we can get back to you and answer them also. As you know, we're always there for you. The office is closed in Ottawa, but the folks are still working. Membership stuff is still there. You can still sign up. You can still get all the information. We're still getting all the questions and feedback. We're still working day in, day out. And send us your questions. Give us a call. Our numbers work, and we're there for you. So thank you for...
Okay, Bernard.
Yes, Bram.
Bernard, I'd like to find one question I see here that came in from Pavel Pilenko. And he thinks, I think all pilots would like to have the ability to see mode C traffic and weather in their iPad while flying. Well, that'd be great, but you got to remember, many years ago, we didn't even have to have mode C. So mode S, the new transponders, is the new generation of this. Pretty soon you won't be able to buy a mode C transponder anymore. It'll be obsolete and nobody's manufacturing it. And the problem is uplinking. Even in the United States, you're only going to see mode C traffic in a mode C veil area as uplinking concern. The rest of the country, you're not going to see it. You'll see aircraft to aircraft if they have a mode S transponder, which is an ADS-B transponder. So you've got to realize we have to make this transition from this old technology to this technology. And basically, mode C is on its way out. So, I mean, you can see weather on your iPad. Yes, certainly you can see weather on your iPad if you're flying in the States because you can get uplink on 978 from the towers or 1090. But as far as uplinking in Canada, even AOPA's had some issues with it. They actually will give you membership if you go sign up with XM Weather. We never used to have that capability to get it in the cockpit, and certainly we talked to NAV Canada bandwidth. This wouldn't be there about any kind of uplinking. They're certainly got their engineering people looking at some other ideas, but it's not in the cards yet. That's sort of like to sum that up there, Bernard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bram. There's one last question from Ken that came in, and then I'll just say, are there any initiatives, projects that you would like to see through to completion before your time with COPA is through? I say two. One is to do a proper handoff to a new person, president, CEO, and to make sure that this person hits the ground running. That would be one thing. And the other one is I would love to see this ADS-B supplement and complement the ELTs that we have. I remember writing about that in January 2016 when I saw the demo of Arion, and I thought this was wonderful if we could do that. And it's just stayed in my mind, and I know I pushed NAV on that, and they finally agreed, and they're doing something about this. So I would be really, really proud. I doubt I'll see this through before my time is through, but at least it's in there. I mean, it's in the oven and it's cooking. And the other, Douglas Brown, comments on the COVID situation impact on local flights' ability to fundraise and remain financially solvent. Just hang tough like everyone else is doing. It's a lot of people are out of work. A lot of people are not doing anything. We're not flying that much. We shouldn't be, really. As I said, and COPA's position is really to do this if it's strictly essential, and we're not pushing for any type of flying. No travel, no recreational, and if it's not for tourism, we shouldn't be flying. Really, let's just keep it down and make sure that we don't move across regions. I know there are exceptions, and we can talk about that. There's one thing, if I may talk about certain flights. So, Doug, to answer your question, I don't have any comments on the impact of local flights. Usually, local flights are not. I mean, you get some money for your coffee, but there's no paid members or nothing, no one in there. So I don't think it's a big issue. I want to talk about charity flights or some other flights or helping flights. We do have members that came up to us and said, can I do something with my aircraft to help during the COVID pandemic? And what can we do? We have been in contact, and I've been contacted by people in the Prime Minister's office and through someone else, and then public safety and transport and blah, blah, blah. So what we've got set up is I've given these people, I said, yes, we have access to over 200 flights across the country. Through the flight captains, we can probably find a few volunteers, and we can get something going if needed. The important thing right now is that these people, what they're looking at is how could this be coordinated? Who would be at the head of that? Would it be provincial, federal, department? Who would be responsible for what? They know that they have access to our thousands of pilots and maybe a lot of people that could do this. And a lot of our members have been through Casera, a military background, and whatever. But the important thing is that a lot of our members are aware and know how a chain of command works, and it wouldn't be a free for all. They would know where what the authority would be, what needed to be done, how to report, and all these things. So there could be a little bit of training, but these flights, and we have people that could be ready to go and help our public authorities in doing something good for COVID. So we've been in touch with several departments, and they're looking at us, and they know that officially they would go through me or the office to participate in these things. So if you do hear of anything, you can send them our way. But I know there have been a few members that have asked us, can we do anything? Can I start something up? It's already in the works. Don't forget to vote. No. Chris Law, would you consider doing circuits essential flying to maintain currency? No, it is not essential. Stay home. That's what I'll say, Chris. And that's pretty much it. So thank you, JC. Thank you, Bram, for taking the time to be on the line. And thank you to the members for being there. It's always pleasant. I wish it could be interactive, a little more interactive, but I see we do get some comments, and thank you. And don't forget to vote. Yeah, for those that are in regions where there's an election for the directors, go ahead and do that. So we will. I'll close this. The video will be on Facebook site, and you can go back there and you can look at the video. And if you do have any more questions, we're there for you. And don't be shy. Send them our way. Thanks, everyone. And JC and Bram, thank you. And Lauren, thank you for doing this. And thanks to the members.
Okay, Bernard. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thanks. Signing off.
Bernard, are you still on?